I love ReZero. It's my favorite series ever. No matter what, it's going to remain #1 forever. But the anime does a poor job of explaining power sometimes. And by sometimes, I mean a lot of the time. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's bad. For the sake of pacing, I get it. And by all accounts, the series isn't about powers or using them to beat the crap out of each other. It isn't a shonen. Those powers are mainly a means to an end in this show. But when spells come out of nowhere and fly left and right, and certain abilities just get used without a true good explanation, I can get sometimes why people would be irked. Which I haven't seen that much, to be fair, so it must be doing a good job, right? But I do intend in this video to explain everything in the anime, and only the anime, because there are way more things yet to come that honestly is the reason why I'm making the video. There's a lot of things that if I didn't explain would start to compound and add up over the time, so it has to be explained. And to do that, I'd like to have visual mediums to represent each thing going on, you know, screenshots, but I'm afraid Katakao would probably kill me. It's a 50-50% chance. So I'm not gonna risk it, and so I've got this. Okay, now that we have our scuffed ass setup, let's get this started. First off, there are 4 main powers in ReZero, and by main, I mean main, because you'll see. So, first of all, there's straight up magic, and let's divide it into 4. Magic, right? Good. Easy to understand. Then, there's spirits, which is technically related to magic, but it's slightly different. And even though it's more of an addendum to magic, I'm treating it as differently. Then, there is divine protections. Got it? And there's authorities. There's one last little thing that I'd like to add, and that's that there's these 10 swords of power, which Reinhard has one of them, the Dragon Sword Reed, but we'll get to those when we get to the characters. Okay, first things first. Magic. I can't even get to the magic first, because this... Okay, so, mana exists in ReZero, and there are 2 types of mana. Let's say that this is a human. There are 2 types of mana. There's mana that exists outside in the atmosphere, just in the environment everywhere. And then there's internal mana. That's inside the person. Now keep in mind that people have different amounts of internal mana, and it varies from person to person, so people will be able to cast different amounts of spells. Now, when you cast a spell, you have to use mana. It has to either be internal mana, processed through something called your gate, which is like this little non-existent organ that's somewhere around here. Okay, somewhere there. And the mana is essentially channeled through your gate and then processed as a spell, or it uses external environmental mana, and you can channel that through a spirit, which we'll get to later, which is why I kind of said that spirits and magic are related. But another thing to note is that physical fighters fight using mana to strengthen their physical characteristics, like Wilhelm, though he doesn't use magic, he strengthens his body and uses that to, you know, become superhuman in a sense. Another thing, you can break your gate if you try and cast way too much. Essentially, if you cast more than what your body can handle, and if you like run out of mana. That's why Subaru's gate is broken, because he tried casting Shamak too many times. It was already unstable, then he casted it again, and then it broke. And when it's unstable, it can be healed, but when it's broken... And there's a different way of casting. There's something called your odd, which is essentially your life force. Your odd. Your odd is your life force. So you can cast magic using it as an alternate power source, although I'd not recommend it because it would probably take years off of your lifespan. So, and I don't know about you, but I don't think that's necessarily healthy. So, Now that that's all done, we can get to magic. Finally! I know that I've spent so much time building this up, but it's because it'll clear things over. Magic has 6 elements. There are 6... Oh, the blinding light! There are 6 types of magic in ReZero. There is fire, water, wind, earth, yin, and yang. I'd have an image up of a yang spell, except we haven't seen one in the show yet. We've only seen spells with yang parts in it, not a sole yang spell. Webnovel readers have. Keep in mind, all of these are attributes. Heal can be born with several attributes, and though Subaru's is only one and it's only dark, people can have multiple, like for example Roswaal has, I think, all of them. It's just a matter of how good you are with each of them. So, first things off, why is sorry mobile users or people that can't really see that well, but why is there an image of Emilia casting ice in the fire section? That is because fire as an element in ReZero more has to do with temperature. So it can be used to cast any fire spells as well as any ice creation spells. Water as an affinity allows you to cast those same ice spells, but it allows you to do healing. Wind spells, they're wind. Earth and wind don't really get much. Earth, well, that we've seen so far. Wind is just the control of wind, and earth is the control of earth. Even though water has the control of water, it also gets healing, but the other ones don't, which is really bizarre for some reason. I don't know. Tab 8 didn't really balance them. Yin and Yang magic spells are the real wild cards. They constitute buffs and debuffs mainly, because for some reason they can also do attacking spells, like Minya, but again, we'll talk about that later. Those are the main 6 elements in ReZero. For each element, you have multiple spells from that element. And keep in mind, these spells can be made with multiple elements at the same time. If you have multiple affinities for both of them, it's weird. Like, you can mix earth and wind. Like, if you had like a wind-earth beam attack, you could call it some other spell. But for each spell in each of these, there exists 4 levels denoted by prefixes. The starting prefix is nothing, so if I had Goa, for example, it'd be Goa. And then you add 1 level of power to it, El Goa, another level, Ul Goa, 3rd level, Al Goa. So EL, UL, AL. And the higher up you go, the stronger it gets, generally. There are like a little bit of added effects, like, for example, for Huma, it changes from a big scatter shot to like a giant single ice shard when you go high enough, which is what Rem used to launch Subaru towards the right whale. And, you know, beams of fire and certain, I think, Ul Goa in general, that's what those levels do. As for what each spell does, I can go over them. Goa is base fire, more fire with higher levels, yada yada yada. Huma, base ice, water and fire spell, but it's a little ice shard that you throw. Higher levels, more ice shards or bigger ice shard. Fula, however you want to say it, if you can roll the L like it's in Japanese properly. Fula is a wind spell that is basically single wind blade, and higher level you go, more wind can be thrown as blades. For Earth, we have Dona, which is a weird case because the first few levels, Dona, El Dona, and Ul Dona, are all defensive. They're like, you create Earth and it shields you. Like Betelgeuse used here to protect himself from Julius. But if you go to Aldona, which was shown in the web novel, Aldona is used as an attack. That's the 4 base elements. For Dark, we have Shamak and Minya. Shamak, the first level of Shamak, which we've seen, basically is a big cloud that disorients people, that makes you lose track of where you are. You essentially lose control of all your senses. And Al Shamak, which is what Beatrice used to get rid of the rabbits, essentially transports a area to another dimension, but it requires a lot of mana. Oh, yeah, and I forgot to say, the higher level you go in terms of spells, you just use more mana. I thought that was a logical thing. Essentially, she won't be able to cast that again. Spirit magic. Now, spirits. Spirits. Spirit magic. Spirits have a life cycle. It's not determined by time. They don't grow to a higher level of spirit based off of time. They grow off to a higher level based off of their wisdom, power, accumulating power, that sort of stuff. It's not time-based. If you're questioning how they're born from Odlogna itself, which is sort of like the god of everything, like the root of everything. It's not like an actual being. It's not like a conscious, well, it kind of is conscious, but okay. It's not a living being. It's whatever. Spirits. With a few exceptions, majority of them are born from Odlogna, and they start off as lesser spirits. Once they grow enough power, they become quasi-spirits, then they become spirits, then they become greater spirits, if they become super powerful. Spirits are already like, if you had two spirits fighting, it would probably level an entire city. Different people have different affinities for spirits that allow them to get along with spirits easier or worse, and allowing you to get along with spirit easier makes you a better spirit art user. Spirits are usually free. They just kind of exist like wild beings, but you can make contracts with them, and then you'll be paired with them. You'll kind of always know that if they're alive because you have this contract. The spirit arts user can cast through the spirit instead. Spirits have, in quote, anchors that anchor them to life. It's kind of like if you know what a lich is, they have a phylactery that roots them to life. That's what a spirit has. That's what an anchor is. It can be objects, sometimes it can be people. Usually, it's always a crystal. That's what Puck has. They can manifest a physical form that can change based off of their whims if they're powerful enough, but they have a timer. They will have to go into their crystal usually to gain mana for themselves. In Betty's case, she didn't get mana that way. She simply was sucking mana out from everyone in the mansion for years. Spirits start getting like a sense of self as a quasi-spirit. As a spirit, they gain like an actual personality as a greater spirit, they still have sentience. And whereas the skill of the caster is what determines the strength of magic, if you're a normal magic user, if you're a spirit arts user, it's the strength of the spirit that determines the strength of the spell. Now, there are 4 great spirits, as in the big ones that are deadly threats. If you've seen the Memory Snow OVA, you know that one of them was Melicuera, big fire horse, Ponyta, and is now Puck. Puck is one of the 4 great spirits. 2 categories done. Let's do this. Divine protections. Okay, divine protections. Okay, divine protections. You know what image we're using for divine protections? Ultra-wide image of Reinhard. Divine protections are blessings granted to you by Odlogna at birth. You're born with them. You can't be given one. Unless your name's Reinhard. We'll get to that later. But divine protections have a host of powers. They're widely variable, and their abilities range. Some can be crazy, some can be pointless. I'm sure you've heard of the divine protection of salt, whatever. It allows you to detect whether it's salt or sugar. Divine protections, we'll get onto those when we talk about the characters, because if I wanted to list them all off, there'd be way too many for a single video like this. That's why I'm going over it like this. There's no reason for me to list off ones that aren't shown in the anime yet. Whew, okay. Authorities are scary. They're, from a direct quote from the author themselves, they're strictly just better versions of divine protections. They're given out via witch factors, and if you kill the previous witch factor holder under certain strength of circumstances, certain little bit. Under certain sets of circumstances, if you have certain conditions already made, you can inherit their witch factor. What that means is you'll have your own version of the witch factor. So far we've seen a few, and I'll get to them in a second. Okay, now that we have everything laid out, I can give the character explanations. Goddamn. Alright, let's get started with the Emilia camp. So, let's go over the main character first. Natsuki Subaru. Main power? Returned by death. What does it do? Returned by death. Second ability. Invisible Providence. It's his only combat ability. Proper combat ability. Now he has Beatrice. But it allows it's an authority which allows him to make a single one of Betelgeuse's unseen hands. They are also still unseen, keep in mind. They can't be seen by anyone else, but he can only make one of them at a time. And making it is highly taxing. Like, you ever been kicked in the balls before? Now, imagine that, but your gut. Like, around here maybe, and then like times 50, and then you want to throw up. He also has yin magic. His magic affinity is yin. He can use yin magic, and he has mainly only used Shamak. He has not learned a single other spell, because he just has not time to rest. Which might have changed in the 1 year time skip before Arc 5. Who knows? Next is Emilia. Who, sorry for the, oh my god, I printed it out, and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be fine, because I forgot my board was this fucking huge. Okay, Emilia. She has the affinity fire, but was also mainly a spirit arts user for the events of arcs 1 through 3. So she used Puck to channel her ice magic. Now, she doesn't, but she can still use it. The events of arc 4 kind of released a floodgate in her brain, like a limiter, which means that she has way more mana to cast from now, so she's essentially the, I think, rated the highest mana character, internal mana character of the series, I think. Or at least one of. Spirit arts, yada yada. She can commune with spirits. Which means we have to talk about her spirit. Fucking Puck. If you're a good person, you don't like this guy because he abandoned his kid. Puck is, a spirit. He has multiple magic affinities. He can use basically any magics, but he used Shamak, keep in mind, earlier. So he has yin affinity. He has, like, earth affinity, water affinity, fire affinity. I think maybe wind affinity. But the point is, to be a great spirit, you have to be great at something. And his thing is ice. He has a big form. Big Bubby. Where he goes Morbius mode. In this form, he's so huge, and keep in mind, remember, being in a physical form for a spirit takes a lot of energy. He's using a ton of mana in the atmosphere around him to maintain his size, which creates the sub-zero field around him, because taking mana from the atmosphere makes it colder. Puck can also read minds, kind of, by touching you. That sort of a thing. He can get bigger and smaller. That's not really what you care about, though. Garfiel. Mainly a fist fighter. So it's weird that he'd have that many abilities. First of all, he has a Divine Protection. The first of the list. He has the Divine Protection of Earth Spirits. He has the Divine Protection of Earth Spirits, which you can use to, like, create earth walls, that sort of thing, but its main use for him is that he can regenerate quickly when he is standing on something that he perceives as the ground. Keep in mind that he perceives as the ground. So for example, if you're on a second-story building, he sees that as him standing on the ground. So he's still healing really fast on the because he sees I'm on the ground, whatever. But that's what makes him such a competent, or one of the things that makes him such a competent hand-to-hand fighter. Garfiel also has his beast form. Because he's a demi-human, he gets a bunch of benefits, other than being, you know, prejudiced against. That's a demerit. He has quick instincts while fighting, so he can think faster and fight than normal humans, but he also gets access to something that is a beast transformation. He can transform his body into that of a beast. A massive tiger? I don't think tigers look like that, but a massive beast that can tear through things with ease. Frederica has basically the same thing, except it's in speed instead of power, so I don't have anything up for her. Oh shoot, I forgot Rem and Ram's images. Whatever, I'll just go through them right now. Rem has healing magic and ice magic, which means she has water magic. Ram has wind magic, and she has this thing where she links her minds with the people around her, or whatever, or the living beings around her, which is called synthesia. It's not magic. It's a trick from her Oni tribe. Otto Suwen has another divine protection. His divine protection allows him to speak to animals. He also has a... Oh, no, come back. He also has a magic affinity, and his magic oh god, I forgot to mention Garfield's magic. Garfield's magic affinity is water. Sorry. This is all very sloppy, I know. Otto's magic affinity is earth. In the web novel, skip ahead if you want to get rid of the cut content, but in the web novel, in Arc 4, he uses, instead of just throwing explosive rocks and stuff at Garfield, he uses Aldona, which is the strongest earth spell, to knock Garfield on his ass, and was one of the main reasons why Subaru can beat him up later. Oh, and speaking of divine protections, all earth dragons like Patrasche, his ground dragon, have the divine protection of wind evasion, which allows them to essentially ignore air resistance. Now we get to Roswaal. Fucking Roswaal. So, you know how Reinhardt's Mr. Everything for divine protections? Roswaal's Mr. Everything for magic. He has control of every element, he has every magic affinity, and he can mix and match them freely. He has flight magic, which is used from combining from like wind, some variant like Liang magic and something. He has a bunch of stuff. He can control the weather with a combined stuff of like earth, water, and fire magic. A lot of his attacks that he was using against Puck are combinations of multiple offensive type spells from every single element. 2-fold, 3-fold, 4-fold, 5-fold, and 6-fold magic. The 6-fold magic was used against Puck in their fight before the series even started, and he used the 5-fold one in Arc 4. In Lagunica, I don't remember if it's the world or Lagunica, but there are rankings of how strong. There are rankings of the strongest magic user of each type. Roswaal holds 3 of the titles. He holds red, yellow, and green, which means he's the strongest user in the kingdom, at the very least, of fire, earth, and wind. Beatrice, user of, well, she's a spirit for one, but she's a user of dark magic. She has other magical affinities too. She can heal. Keep in mind, she's a better healer than Emilia. The main spells that she's used so far are Shamak, Al-Shamak, which I already explained, and Minya. Minya is a spell that is offensive, but it gets around the, oh, dark is only full of debuffs, by saying, okay, if it hits you, you get crystallized, which is just, you fucking die. The upper levels of Minya only get worse, by the way. Crusch Karsten. First of all, she has a divine protection, which allows her to tell lies and read the wind. But secondly, she has powerful wind magic. She had her one display of wind magic using the wind blade of her 1,000-man felling slash to hit the white whale like once, and then, sorry, Crusch. Mr. Argyle, the strongest healer in the kingdom, strongest water magic user in the kingdom. He's blue. That's why Roswaal doesn't have the blue title. He's so good at restorative magic that he can bring someone back from the literal brink of death. Like on death's doorstep, you are dying. You are seeing God. You are at the gates, the pearly gates. He can bring you back. He can reattach lost limbs, that sort of stuff. But that's not like the extent of it. When he gets close to someone, he can kind of disrupt their circulatory system. Like, it's like overloading your own body's healing, sort of. Anesthesia camp. Oh, sorry. Wilhelm, again, like Garfiel, uses mana too. Wilhelm's a normal human. He doesn't use magic in fights. He is not a magic user. He mainly uses his own mana to increase his strength. Julius. Okay. He is a spirit arts user with 6 quasi-spirits. Each quasi-spirit can cast elements or elemental magic of their own elements because his 6 quasi-spirits are one of each element. Although they aren't too strong, he has 2 big techniques. This one is Alclarista, which is a... Oh, I pointed out the wrong one. This one's Alclarista, which is an ability that allows him to use his 6 spirit's elements, imbue them into his sword, and make it a sword that essentially can cut anything, is what he says. And his second big technique, Alclauseria, is the same thing, except it's a big sword beam instead. The Pearlbatons, they each have their own elements. The only one thing of note that of their elements is that Mimi has healing. She has water affinity. They haven't shown any of their magic yet, but they have shown their supersonic shriek, which is their a product of their divine protection. They have like the divine protection of the Triforce or whatever. No, it's just the divine protection of Trisection, which allows them to share each other's burdens. They can essentially take damage for each other and be hurt for each other. But this also allows them, for some reason, to make a big, like a destructive sonic wave with their voices, but it can only be used like a few times per day. Priscilla camp. They haven't shown anything. Owls just existed. The only thing we've seen is Priscilla, who showed the Yang sword, which is one of the 10 swords of power, which are swords with extreme power among the entire series. Which, speaking of, get him out of the way first. Reinhard Van Astrea. Okay. So, first thing I'd like to clarify, the Blessing of the Sword Saint is not what allows him to get any divine protection he wants. He gets any divine protection he wants, but the Blessing of the Sword Saint, the divine protection of the Sword Saint, is different. It basically makes it so that in combat, your strength and your maximum potential is always realized. So you're always fighting at your maximum potential. Since he's loved by Odlagna, it gave him the ability to essentially just wish for divine protection and have it give it to him. There's other things, though, that matter with him. The only limit of this is in cases where it's a divine protection where only one can exist in the world at the same time, which one will come up later. I'll talk about it then. So when he just kind of stands, by existing, he takes in mana. He can't use magic at all. That's one of the downsides of him, but he constantly drains mana from the area surrounding him, which drops temperature, and essentially makes it so that when magic tries to hit him, it basically does nothing. I mean, he has divine protections that nullify 80% of the magic's damage, but like, that kind of gets rid of the last 20%. He has divine protection so that he will always hit, and people will never hit him. So unless he wants to be hit, you're not hitting him. He can't be ambushed, he can't be poisoned, that sort of stuff. He also has one of the 10 swords of power, the Dragon Sword. Read. Which, when used, as shown against Puck, combined with his own ability that is to like suck in a bunch of mana from the atmosphere and do a big sword blast. That sword blast that he used against Puck literally destroyed the world and remade it. Yeah, that's with that. Okay, even though he has a super good matchup against spirits users because he just takes away their mana, he has an exceptional affinity with spirits. Spirits love him. Just by existing, environmental spirits come up and like try and heal him. Felt. She has an unnamed divine protection that allows her to go fast. That's it. Okay, moving on. Elsa. You've probably seen in 1,000 YouTube comments that she is not a vampire. She is a, in quote, cursed doll. What does being a cursed doll mean, though? A cursed doll exists after you make a curse. Good job, me. But essentially, you curse a being to go after and kill another living being. And they, in a sense, essence, gain immortality from it. Immortality, because Elsa's fucking dead. It didn't really work. Most of them go completely insane, but Elsa, through some process, remained sane, which is a big question. And we don't know how or who made her a cursed doll. We just know that she works for the same person as Meili. Meili is one of the existences that has a divine protection that can only have one of it in the entire world at once, which means Reinhard can't just wish for it. Whew! A single limiter to Reinhard. Okay. Meili has a divine protection which allows her to control witch beasts. So if they have a horn, she can control it, which is like the signifier of a witch beast. And now we get to the big bads. Okay. You get back here. Petelgeuse. So first of all, he has his unseen hands, which he can summon hundreds of, to kill people. They are unseen, meaning that they are invisible to the naked eye unless you're Natsuki Subaru for some godforsaken reason. And he will do those onto you. He also has, as aforementioned, his earth magic, which he uses for defensive burials. But what he did in Season 1, where he possessed Subaru, was out of a product of Subaru having a high spirit affinity. Petelgeuse can essentially possess any body that has a high affinity to spirits. And specifically ones that aren't already contracted with the spirit. So that's why you're gonna take over Julius. That's basically it for him, I think. Stinky guy, he looks like he doesn't shower. But you know who looks like they do shower? This motherfucker. I won't say too much about him because it's technically spoilers, but all you need to know is that he has like a thing that makes it so that he got tossed into that tree and survived, and then he got his neck like... That's a 180-degree neck turn. He survived that somehow. Maybe his power is like he's an owl or something. I don't know. I do know. Gluttony. So, he has the ability to both eat someone's memories and the fact that they ever existed in the first place, much like the white whale. Those are two separate things. The memory was used on Crusch, and both of them were used on Ram. That's pretty much all the characters. As for Sirius, just gotta wait for the next episode. I must look like a fucking deranged person with